get into something that's a little bit more interesting, I think. So the question was asked about how do you rotate things. So sort of, getting into something that's a little bit more complex. If I was to take the floor plate of my bridge and have a simple guardrail handrail, but maybe I want it to be more interesting and I want it to kind of lean outward or something like that, kind of like I think the London Bridge looks like that. It has these wings that kind of stick out like that, and then it has a little arm that gives you the handrail guardrail thing. We're going to create the wings, essentially. Is that the London Bridge? I forget. Let's see. I'm curious. There's like a new pedestrian bridge like this or something. I don't know. They created a new one in London. I forget. It was the one in Harry Potter. This one. So, if we wanted to create some kind of datum line along the edges of a bridge to create some cool structure, or if it's handrails or something like that, we can do that with rotators. So we're going to do it pretty simply for now, and we won't necessarily worry too much about the accuracy of like the gaps and everything like that. If you want to get into the more complex geometry, we can. But simply put, the first thing I'm going to do is isolate the edges of the arc. So I already kind of have one, and that's all the way back here. I could simplify it and just get both of the edges of the extrusion directly from the extrusion. That's probably fine. Or I could go all the way back and find the original curve, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to work up here now. And so I need to go and deconstruct the surface and grab the edges. So I go under Surface, Analysis, Deconstruct BREP, and I plug that in, hide that. Now you can see that I've got points, I've got edges, and one face. And I'll need to isolate two of those edges. So I'm going to go to Set List, List Item, and I want to show you a new feature of List Item. I'll plug the edges in, and I'm going to make a slider for 0 to 3. I'll plug that into I. So zooming in on this a little bit here, you'll see that index 0 is on the edge. Index 1 is a side, 2 is an end, and 3 is a side. So I need 1 and 3. So the clever little trick that I'm now introducing to you is that the list item feature can collect more than one index input. So if I change this one to 3 and I plug that in as well, holding Shift, you can see that it actually selected both arcs. How's the lighting? Can you guys see the greens very well up there? Yeah. If it's all right with you guys, I'm going to turn one more off. Okay, so you don't have to use a separate list item for every single one. In fact, I didn't even need to before, but I like to for the first couple weeks so that you can see visually what's happening. So now I've got 1 and 3. And so those are my edges. So what I'm going to do here is, I don't want to offset. I think I will offset. I'm going to see if offset curve will work for me, if it gives me the orientation. So curve, utility? Distance, plane. Ha. Yes. Okay. So offset curve. offset curve is obviously going to ask you for the curves that it wants to offset. It will specify a distance to offset it, and it'll ask you for the plane. So basically, well, distance. Yeah. So I think I want to set the plane to the normal plane, normal point. So I'm going to try this out. It should work. So it sets my origin here for the offset to be where the normal is. Notice how the one that was down here now disappeared? Way back here under evaluate surface, right, it gave me a normal. That normal is tied to the orientation of the bridge, and incidentally it's also tied to the orientation of the arcs that I am now selecting. So I can use that as my orientation to do an offset surface, or I'm sorry, offset curve. So now I can try feeding both of the curves in and take a look at what it's doing. So here in perspective, you see that it's actually taking those curves. Have you guys been introduced to offset yet? Oh. Oh, okay. Well, let me just get back into the top view real quick, and I'll just give you a quick rundown. So if I draw a rectangle, okay, so I draw a rectangle. It's two-dimensional. It's made out of curves. If I type in offset curve, or just offset actually, it's going to ask me for a numerical distance. And it also has some other settings that are built into it that aren't really all that important right now. It has corner types. You can change it to rounded or sharp. You can change it to both sides where it's going to offset inward and outward. But for me, I'm just going to leave everything basic right now. And my distance, I don't even know what distance I'm working in. I guess I'll set it to 4 feet. I'm just showing you this. 4 feet's too much. Just make it 1 foot. I'm just showing you this, guys. You don't have to do it. I just want you to understand what an offset is. So I can drop my curve 1 foot offset from the original curve to the inside. Or I can do the same thing to the outside. Okay, so that's an offset. So now you can see and understand me a little better that the offset here, because I placed it at the orientation plane that my arc was created in, it actually allows me to offset either down or up from the surface of the arc. And so the distance here is preset. It's preset to 1. I'm going to leave it at 1, but I'm going to change, make it a variable so I can change it a little bit. And also, I want to offset upward, because I'm making guardrails and handrails now. I want it to be above my bridge, so to speak. So I can go and make a slider. 0, less than 1, less than 2.5. I did the 0.5 because I want it to be not just integers. Plug that in. Oh, sorry. You can make it a negative if you want. We need to go up, so the negative matters. I'm just going to go under math, go to operators, and drop in a negative button. Node. There we go. Now it's going up, and I can change that value. You guys seeing that? Offset. Okay. So I am going to stop this video here and move on. I think I've got 2 more left to do. I think we can get it done today. We might have to wait on the rotation until tomorrow. Sorry, Neffy. But we'll get there tomorrow. But I still have a little bit more to do today. We'll stop here. Any other questions about that?
What was your offset connected to again? Which surface? Is it the arc?
It's connected to the edges of the arc. It's an offset curve, not an offset surface.
With this offset, we're using the offset to, take these edges and move them up or down. Can you also extrude a line in that same way? Or sorry, let me rephrase that. So you want those edges to move up. If you extrude them, wouldn't that achieve the same result?
Yeah, sort of. If I extrude them, it creates a surface. I'm not trying to create a surface right now. I want there to be a gap, and I'm going to create another surface that sits above. Does that make sense?
I'm just saying if you wanted to.
If you wanted to, yeah, extrusion would do this.
But you can also
Well, actually, no. So extrusion would not do the same thing because extrusion is vector based, and this one is based off of perpendiculars. So it maps all the perpendicular points along the curve. I'll show you an exaggerated example on the board. But if I have that, if I extrude the curve in the z direction, what I get is that versus an offset is going to go that far up there and that far up there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone else? Because with an extrusion, you have to set one direction, not the band. One direction. With offset, it's based off of the perpendicular points of the surface. So it gives me a perpendicular here, perpendicular there, and here, and there. Likewise, it'll do the same thing if it inverts and goes that way too. It'll go around. Okay.